And let's go ahead and get started. So the title of today's webinar is called Don't Be Anxious, 10 Keys to Lower Stress Sales Calls. I'm really excited to do this today. We're going to go through a few things. The first is we'll do some introductions. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then if you would have a chance to do the same in the chat when we get to there, we'll go through 10 different keys of things just to help take some of the stress out of your initial sales calls and meetings with people. I'm going to do a brief demonstration of some of the things that I do when I'm researching a prospect or customer for the first time, and then have some time for Q&A at the end. And again, this is being recorded as well, so just keep that in mind as you're asking questions or making statements in it. So just to start off with a little bit about me, my name is Peter. I'm the co-founder of a company called Genesis Feed Technologies. Just throughout my career, I've done a number of different things in sales, from agriculture. I was a seed and chemical dealer for about 5 years. I've worked at Sears selling appliances. I've sold cell phones. Got my first kind of taste of sales selling Cutco knives as a summer job during college. Just curious, is anyone else in here that does sales, done anything with Cutco or anything like that? It'd be fun to hear your comments and things with that in the chat. I am a husband and a father. There's a picture of my family there as well. And just a fun fact about me, that I have lived in 3 different countries, and 2 of them are islands. And so if you're curious about those, feel free to ask later and I can tell you specifically what those are. So I'd like to hear a little bit from you, and each of you, if you either want to unmute and just tell a little bit about yourself, or if you'd like to just throw in the chat. Where are you from? What state are you calling from? What is your role with your company, and what is your industry? I know when I did the registrations, I just did a post on Facebook before we started today, that when I first had the idea to do this webinar, I was just hoping that somebody would show up. And we've had, I think, about 25 people register, and there was 11 different states being represented. So we've got Stephen and Nathan from Iowa. I know we've got some people from North Dakota on the call. People from Texas had registered, Pennsylvania. Steve, San Antonio, QuickBooks trainer and consulting. Nathan's a commercial manager as a grain buyer, another corn merchandiser, founder of Harvest Profit in Fargo. So we have freelance consultants, we have grain buyers, we have ag tech consultants, a farmland real estate software specialist. That is a mouthful. Thank you, Steve. So a lot of different industries, a lot of different places. I'm just very excited to have all of you on the call. I'll be looking down at the chat on my phone from time to time just to see if there are any questions. I do believe there's a way that you can raise your hand or go too fast or too slow. If there's anything feedback on that, you can click on those buttons and I'll be able to see that as we go through this. So, and I think one thing that unites all of us in this is we all want to help our customers. And that's really kind of the goal, what I think is of sales, and what I'm hoping to communicate here today. Or here's different ways you can help your customers, and you can help them do that by being well prepared for your calls and your introductions with them. So what got me started in the first place with doing some of this training was I've noticed there's a lot of myths or misconceptions about sales. What exactly is sales, what people's ideas of a salesperson is, and then also what they need to do when they're in sales. And so here's just some things that I've frequently heard when working with people. I must convince them to buy. My goal as a salesperson is to get a meeting with someone and convince them to buy my product. That is absolutely the wrong way to approach sales. It puts a lot of pressure on you. It turns you off from listening to telling, and destroys the whole process before you even start. Number 2, it's all about the presentation or the brochure. Now, I've fallen into this one myself many times, where I get so focused on making sure everything's worded perfectly, that I've got the right pictures in there and I'm communicating the right message. all those things are important, and to be clear, your presentations and your brochures and your marketing collateral and your brand are very important, but those things are not going to save you to make a sale or to make it all happen. So it can't be all about that. Sales is manipulative. You think of the used car salesman, and that's just a pun. If there is someone on here that is a used car salesman and you're doing that with integrity, then good for you. But people think that, oh, I have to say things in a certain way, and I'm really just tricking people, or I'm just saying things to convince them to do something that they don't want to do. All those things, that is definitely a myth about what sales really is. Another one is there's only one good way to reach prospects. You hear people talking online, cold calling is dead. I must do nothing but cold call. I'm going to do nothing but social selling. Email is the way to go. Direct mail, whatever it is. There's no one good way to reach and connect with people. So again, I'd like to turn this back to you in the audience as guests today. What are some of the myths about sales that you've heard in the past, or what are some of the things that you believed about sales that you didn't realize until you got into it that wasn't necessarily true? And I hope I wasn't good enough to cover all of them. I'm sure there's some other things out there that people have heard as well, or maybe thought to themselves as they were going through sales. What are some myths or some things that you've heard or believed in the past? Steve said you have to sell out to make a sale, right? That's another one. You think that you can't represent yourself or your story, or tell the truth, that you have to do all those things to make a sale and be deceitful. Does anyone else have anything? Yeah, every conversation or meeting has to be the same, right? The sales is a cookie cutter. If I have the right thing to say, or the right ABC that I'm going to always be closing, and I'm always going to be doing this or that, then it's going to work out. The truth is, every conversation is different. You're telling a story, you're listening to people, and letting that go the way that it should in each conversation. Make it personal and make it unique. All right, so as I go through these, I'll give a chance to, if you have any questions or comments on those, you can definitely ask those in the chat, or if you have something you'd want to add on something that's been successful for you in each of those keys, I would like to just point those out or share those. I have my own ideas on things, and these are just things that I've picked for myself that I try to consistently do to be successful in sales. And most of these have come out of just work I've done with other clients and things that I've taught them and worked with them on. So key number one, you must block and schedule time for prospecting. You need to block time every day and be consistent about it. It's one thing to say that you're going to do it. If you don't have it scheduled on your calendar, odds are it's not going to happen. And I suggest an hour minimum. You could do more. If you're doing less, you're not going to be very successful in sales. Your best time is going to vary. It really matters on who your customer is. Most people I'm not going to contact the first half of the day on Monday because they're cleaning up things in their week, right? And so I may be sending something out later on in the day. I'm not always doing phone calls. I might be doing some social stuff. I might be doing some phone calls, whatever. But you kind of know your customers and the rhythm and routine of your industry, and just play around with that. Try different times on different days and see when you have the best results with different things like phone or email or social selling or whatever it may be. Key number two, you got to set goals. If you don't measure it, it's not going to happen. And by setting goals, you can drive yourself to be more successful in this area. And so when I've been more in a full-time sales role, I've said, I'm going to contact this many people today, and then stick to it. If I'm going to make 30 contacts or 50 contacts or 100 contacts or whatever it is, to write that down, make the goal achievable, and tracking your progress and being accountable to them. Otherwise, you just say, oh, I'm just going to call a few people today. Maybe you'll contact 15 people. But if I say I'm going to contact 50 and my stretch goal is to hit 60, you're going to be more likely to do that and then have some sort of, hey, I actually got something done at the end of the time. I'm curious, for you that are in here, how many of you set goals for how many people you're going to contact, or do you do things like that, or have you found things that have been successful in that area? I'll go on to the next one. If people have anything, I'll look for it. Key number 3, you got to do your homework. This is a big one. Your goal is to know your customers. That's, you know your industry, you know their needs, you know what's going on generally within that, whether it's grain merchandising or farm real estate software or IT business services. Each business, each industry is unique. There's things that are happening in that, whether it's industry trends or marketplace things, that you need to stay on top of. And then specifically within your customer, you need to know your prospect. So sales is all about building relationships and making personal connections with people. So it's going to show not only do you know about the industry, you're going to show that you have a personal interest in this person, in their business, in their success, and that it's genuine. It's not something that's fake or cookie cutter. And really, your goal is to be a matchmaker in sales. You have a product, you have a service, there is value to that product and service. Now you're just trying to find who are the right people to match that up to and how to lead them through that process to make something happen with it. So you're not convincing them to buy something that they don't want. This is the need you provide. You'll be able to quickly find out who that person is and what they need. I know it just, you can make, it gives you a chance too to make things personal when you're reaching out to people. You do a little bit of homework and you find out, oh, this person wrote 3 blog posts on this thing. It's going to, set something for you to talk about. Or, one time I was researching a prospect and found a little article about the person where they really loved history and were big Ben Franklin buff. They're really interested in Ben Franklin, and I'd just gotten done reading a biography of Ben Franklin. So I was able to talk to that person about that, and as a thank you gift, I sent him a copy of a Ben Franklin biography that he hadn't read. In my searches before talking to people, I found out that the general manager of an elevator died, and this person had just replaced him 3 months earlier. You can see managerial transitions, or just different things like that you may not directly talk about when you're talking with them, but it's going to give you maybe some empathy into what's happening or some trends that are happening in the industry. Nathan wrote back, I do set the goals. The hard part is making them achievable. It's easy to set a high goal and not reach it. And that's a very good point, is, play around with different levels of that. I'm the same way. I'll set it, I want to talk to 100 people today. And, maybe you can get through 30 at a time. So just start to find out what's right for that. Work with other people in your specific industry to see what is achievable and what is reasonable, and play around with that. And don't be too hard on yourself. If you're setting a goal and working towards it, you're ahead of most of the people. Key number 4, this is really important. You're excited about your product. You're excited about what you have to offer. You're expecting to call this person. They're not expecting it from you. You are interrupting them, and you have to be sensitive to that when you're contacting people. And you just never know what's happening when you call someone. Maybe their kid forgot to bring their lunch to school, and they're about to have to leave to go drop lunch off to them. Maybe you got some bad doctor's results that day. They might be hungry. Maybe they didn't sleep well the night before. Or maybe they just received some good news. Every single person is having a day that you have no idea what's going on and no control over what's happening on the other end of the phone. So with that, have some empathy for that person on the call. Make it personal for them. Remember, each call is new. You might call the same person at a different time on a different day and get a completely different response just because they're in a different frame of mind. Put yourself in a mindset of when you've gotten a call or you've gotten an interruption from a salesperson. What is your initial reaction to it. Even if they, even if you want their product and you want their service, you have a set of things that you're trying to get through in the day. And this person just interrupted you. I had Ryan just said, I once stopped and called on a person that had buried their mother that day. It did not turn out to be a good call, but was a great learning experience. And so I think that's a great thing to think about, that if, when you're calling someone, whatever is happening in the day, you're making it personal for them. You're connecting with them on a human level, and you're not just trying to get through a certain value statement or a certain message just shoved down their throat and try to get to the next step. We're dealing with people. We're all having our own day, good or bad, and we bring things to it. And so with that, it's so important when you're communicating with someone, be clear, be precise, and get to the point. You want to get in there and out of there as quickly as possible. So have a clear message, have a clear statement, have a clear purpose for your call or for why you're reaching out that connects with them, so you can get that message across and move on. And that requires thought, that requires practice and preparation to really know your story. What is the value that you're selling? What is that you're doing? What are you bringing? What do you need from them? And just being assertive with that. Next key is smile. It changes your tone, it changes your attitude, and people will notice. I've done a lot of different jobs when I was in college and earlier on in my career where I was on the phone. And it was just pounded into me over and over again. Smile when you're on the phone, smile when you're talking, even smile when you're emailing people. It's going to change your intention for how you're approaching that conversation and how you're approaching that person in that situation. And people do take notice of it. So just remember, you're interrupting people. Each call is new. Start each call with a smile, because you never know, that last person that swore and cussed you out, the next person that you talk to might be exactly ready to buy what you have, and they're ready for you. So be ready for them. Number 6, it's all about mindset. So like I said earlier, we all come to a day with certain expectations, certain things that we're thinking about. This, you may not have expected to see this in how to prepare for a sales call, but I think this is one of the most important things to do when you're approaching sales. Is, the first of all is, for me, practicing meditation has been huge. It's to clear your mind and to hear, what is that mental tape that's going on in your head? What are the thoughts that you're bringing to that call and to that day and to that person? Are they negative thoughts? Are they, oh, they're never going to buy from me, or I'm wasting my time in contacting them, or sales is manipulative, sales is scuzzy, sales is this. That's going to determine how you look at it. This picture on the side, you've probably seen this before. I first saw it in Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits. Do you see an old hag or a beautiful woman? What is your first thing that you see in that? And now that I've mentioned both of those, do you see the other one? It's just the same with everything else that we do, but we have to have a clear mind to know what is that tape that's going on inside of our head, so we can deal with it. We can be present for that call, that email, whatever you're doing right at that moment. That is the center of your universe. It should be the most important thing that you're doing. So you're not calling a prospect while sending an email, while listening to a podcast. You're picking one of those things, you're focusing on it, you're being present to it, and it will help you connect with people and connect with ideas. And then finally, your why. You have to know your why. And I'm not just talking, why do you have your product? Why are you selling this thing? Why are you getting up every morning and doing what you're doing in your business and in your life? If you don't know that, you're going to get easily discouraged. Things are going to happen. And it's going to be very easy to say, well, I made 5 calls today. That's enough. I've had enough. But if you know that why, if you have visual cues or visual reminders of that in place that you can see to push you through when those times are discouraging, that's going to help you. Key number 7, remember to breathe. When we get on the phone or when we're doing something outside of the norm, we get nervous. And it's easy to just start talking, start going faster, and then you don't breathe, and all of a sudden your voice gets constricted, and then it's really hard to think, and you just need to stop, take a breath. It calms your nerves, it relaxes your muscles, excuse me, and you will be easier to understand. So just even that mental cue, you get done with one call, you go, take a deep breath before you do the next one. When you're in your calls, take breaths. Now, you don't want to be heavy breather on the phone with people. That's not what I'm saying at all. Just take the breaths, take the pauses, and that'll force you to stop talking. It'll force you to listen. It'll force you to ask questions and take those pauses. And that energy will be passed on to the person that you're talking to. If you're calm and if you're in control, the person on the other end will respond to that and match up with that. Key number 8, add value to their day. It gets back to why. Why are you calling this person? You're not calling them to convince them to buy something. You're calling to build a relationship. You're calling them to be a matchmaker. You're calling to add value to whatever they're doing. And that value is more than just that product that you're selling to them. So just remember, you have a unique perspective and you should share it. When you're calling people across your industry and talking with them and having conversations with them about their needs and their challenges, you're learning things that the person that you're calling isn't necessarily aware of. So you may be hearing things from 10 or 15 other people that they don't know about it because they're busy doing their job. And so that's something unique that you can bring to your conversations. If you go to a trade show and you hear people talk about a concern or an issue, that's something you can bring up when you're talking with people on the phone, because don't assume they're aware of it just because you know it. People don't buy products, they buy because they like you. They want to have a connection with you and what you're doing. You have to think about when your name pops up on an email, on the caller ID, on the phone, what's their reaction going to be? Are they going to be excited? Oh, good, Peter's calling. I wonder what he has for me today. Or is it going to be like, oh crap, Peter's calling. I wonder what he wants now. If you're only calling people when you need something, they're not going to want to talk to you. You know, if you're just calling about a bill or about a renewal or about an error or about those things, people are going to have a negative or adverse reaction to seeing your name. And that's definitely not something you want. You want them to be excited about the fact that you're reaching out to them because they know, hey, Peter's busy. His time is valuable. He has something valuable for me. I'm going to take the time and energy to look at this today. So this would be another one. I'd be curious, what are some of the things that you guys do to add value when you're calling people, when you're reaching out to them? What are some of the things that you share, or the ways that you try to do that? Feel free to share those in the comments in the chat, and I'll try to bring those up later. Adding value adds purpose to your calls. Again, it gets back to why are you calling people? Not just to buy, not just to convince, not just to transact your product. You're sharing a message. You have a perspective on your industry. You have knowledge. You have things that are going to be valuable for this person. And sometimes you're going to call them just to see, how they're doing. Make a personal connection with them. Wonder, just make that connection. You're not always just trying to do a transaction. Key number 9, expect objections. And I'm a big Hitchhiker's Hide at the Galaxy fan, so I had to share that in there too. I'm a bit of a nerd with that one, but resistance is useless. You're going to have an objection. It's a natural thing. The first is going to be that reflex response. People are just going to say, no, they don't want to be interrupted. They don't want to be into whatever it is that you're talking about that day. They're going to say no. I think back to earlier on in my career, I did some commission sales at Sears selling appliances, and a guy that I worked with, he would just say, "Can I help you today?" And people would say no, or just looking, and move on. And I went from that to, instead of saying, can I help you, to how can I help you, to I would just walk up to someone and say, oh, you're looking at dishwashers today. And they would tell their story. So if you find ways to open up that conversation with people to get past that reflex response or that brush off. I've got 3 daughters at home and they're asking me for things all the time. And my initial reflex response is to say no or to brush it off. And they know that and they learn how to persist. My 5-year-old one time, she wanted to go out to eat. And she said, Daddy, you like spicy food? I said, yeah, you're right, I do. She goes, Jade Dragon has spicy food. I'm like, yeah, that does. Well, we should eat there today, because she really wanted to eat at Jade Dragon. So she, rather than just saying, can we eat at Jade Dragon tonight, she leaned in with, you like this. This place has it. Well, we should go there. I thought, well, and we did. I thought, rewarded that. You're pretty smart for 4 years old to be able to to be able to do that. But just know that the objections are normal. You're calling them. You are interrupting their day. They're going to naturally want to get you off their back so they can get on to the things that they were working with. So don't just respond to the objection with, okay, thanks, bye. Right? You want to push through that, and there's ways that you can talk through that, and ways that you can get to that I can get into more detail at a later time. But just expect it, be ready for it, prepare for it, and just know that objections are the beginning of a conversation. They are not the end of the conversation. And then the final key is lead. Being a salesperson and being in sales is being a leader. You have to be confident that you and your product are valuable. Your customer is going to expect you to lead, and people are going to respect you for it. When you call someone up on the phone and kind of amble around and say, well, I was thinking maybe we should talk about this because, well, maybe there's something with that, it's not going to go very well. If you have a crisp, clear, defined message that you talk through people, and if they want to buy your product, you know your product better than they do. You know your solution better than they do. They're relying on you to assertively lead them through that process. And that's just being confident and helping people, and you're saving them time, and it's going to be valuable for them. So that assertiveness and that confidence, it's not being pushy, it's not being manipulative, because we're listening, we're understanding the value, we're connecting with the right people, and we're taking them through this as quickly as possible, because we don't want to waste your time or theirs. So just remember, just to lead, and people will respect you for it. And I'd shared the picture here, the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, where he was asking, where do you want to go? And she goes, well, I really don't care where. And then he says, well, it doesn't matter which way you go. He said, well, just walk along then. You don't want to be that person that people are wanting you to show them where to go and say, well, it doesn't matter where. Well, you're not going to get very far with them. So I want to do a brief demonstration just on how I research a prospect if I'm contacting someone for the first time. And Steve, a longtime friend of mine, and he's on the call from Sequentia Solutions, is on. And I asked him ahead of time if I could do this. So I'm going to pretend that I am researching Steve Chase for Sequentia. So I'm just going to start with the basic Google search for him. And I see a few things on here that are interesting. Okay, so here's his business page. I'm going to open that up. I also see he's got a LinkedIn profile. He's got a blog. And then I'm also going to look, I really like to see if people are on Twitter. I don't know if that's him. That's not Steve Chase. That's a different one. And I know he's on Twitter. Steve, you need to get your SEO on Twitter back up here. Well, maybe it's on his site. So we're going to go onto his site here, and the first thing I'm usually drawn to if I'm on a site is, number one, what kind of social networks are they on? So I like to look at those. So there's his Twitter, got his LinkedIn. Oh, he's got a YouTube channel. I like to look at people if they've got a blog. And then look, one of the things that Steve has highlighted on his site is book recommendations. So that tells me a few things, that Steve is a reader and that he is a lifelong learner and that he also likes to teach people. It says a lot about someone when they not only do they read, but that they're sharing it here. My internet is going a little slow. All right, so here's his YouTube channel. So he likes the Daily Drucker, Peter Drucker. So, you know, if there were some things that I'd read with Peter Drucker, I might want to share those with him. A video about Excel. Again, this is him teaching. He's big into Excel spreadsheets. A lot of videos. Steve has the heart of a teacher. He likes to teach. He likes to lead in that way. So if I had a product that I was going to approach Steve about, I would be thinking about, you know, what are some ways that, you know, who are his customers? So it looks like he's, you know, going to be working with maybe freelancers or maybe people that are, you know, working in this. How can my solution help him do business more effectively with those people? How can that help him teach or get transactions done more quickly? I look at his book recommendations. StrengthsFinder. I've done the StrengthsFinder, and that was really important for me too. So I would probably work that into a conversation with him that, oh, I noticed that StrengthsFinder was an important book for you. Here are my top 5. What were yours, and what have you learned about that? And so I'm not going to just jump out of the gate with that when I call him for the first time, but it may be something in that conversation or one of the first ones I would mention, because that's something that was important for me. And then always got this read it for me service is important. If I had heard about that, I would say I really like that. Or if I hadn't, I may ask him what that's all about. Same thing here on his LinkedIn page. Dave Ramsey, Larry Biquette, Christian. I would take a look at that and just, you know, some different things with that. Dave Ramsey, I like his program, and I've been through the baby steps, some of them before, and so just I would start filing some of these things away, either taking notes or just mental notes on, you know, who this person is and what are some of the things that they're interested in, what are some of the things that they're writing or sharing about. I would probably start following them on Twitter and just looking through his top 5, top 10 posts recently, and is there something that I could comment on? LinkedIn as well. In the past, I've used Sales Navigator for LinkedIn, and you can start following people there. There was one organization where I was having a real hard time having a conversation with someone in the organization just because it's a larger group. I started following them on Sales Navigator, and 2 of the people that I was following there, they'd published or shared an article, and so I was able to just comment on that article, and we started having this back and forth conversation. That same day, I ended up having a phone call with them, and we were able to talk because we'd made that connection on LinkedIn, and I shared something that was valuable that was related to his post that resonated with him, and we went back and forth on that, and we met at a few trade shows, and I introduced him to a few people in the industry that might be able to resell his product. That all came because I just started kind of taking an interest in what he was interested in and listening for ways that I could add value to his day and keep it personal. So I would just, like I said, go through this, make some notes either in my CRM or just in mental notes, and start kind of building this profile. Who is this person? What do they care about? What are they into? What are some ways that I can personally connect with him in a way that's real and genuine, and things that I care about and that he cares about? And how might whatever it is that I'm selling meet his needs, right? And really, it doesn't take long. You can get through something like this in less than 5 minutes for somebody, but you should do some initial research before you call someone or before you call an organization. It's going to be the difference between having a next meeting or a successful sales cycle with them and being brushed off because you don't know what you're talking about. And really, what are you after when you're doing sales with people? And if anyone had any comments or recommendations or things that they look at too, feel free to share those as well in the comments. Push through fear to certainty. This, for me, is the core of sales, mental toughness. And I shared a quote from Winston Churchill: if you're going through hell, keep going. When you're doing sales, when you're calling people, when you're putting yourself out there, you're going to go through some dark moments with that. You're going to get rejection. You're going to get yelled at. You're going to get people that say, no, you're not going to be sure of your message. And doing your sales, you're interrupting them, right? And you have to push through that initial brushback, that initial reflex. It's the same thing with you doing sales activity. It's not something that's necessarily normal for you. It's not something that you're used to. It's an interruption to the way that your mind is normally used to working, and you have to push through that. Know your why. Let it drive you through that. I've seen this happen with a number of clients that I've worked with, where there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety because I don't know my message. Maybe I don't know my message very well, or I don't know what my customer needs are very well, or I'm not sure that this is going to get through with them. Play it as a bit of a game. Try different things and experiment and see what you can find out, and just keep pushing. Chris asked, is there any value to buying prospect lists that are industry specific? I've done some of that in the past where I've gotten lists, and you can start cold emailing people or cold reaching out. It definitely, I think, could be part of your approach with people, and you're kind of casting that wider net, and like I said earlier, you should balance your prospecting and reach out in different ways. For me, my top priority is warm referrals. So existing customers that I'm already working with, ask them for referrals. That's an area that most people don't think of or haven't taken the time to do that. But if someone's a long-time loyal customer of yours, or they're having a really good experience, people like to tell people about something that that they like, and if they can add that to someone, it adds to that. So referrals are good. You want to reach out cold through social and other things, and then those paid lists. That's more of that wider net. Different ways to do that. So I'd say it should be part of what you do. Just again, when you're looking at that list, research before you reach out, because the information might be outdated. That's a really good question, though. All right. So my why. Why am I even doing this in the first place? I asked myself that question before I started this webinar. Back in November, I quit my job at Myriad Mobile to start working on my company full time. And I really started with the lunch appointment I had with one of my former clients from Myriad. Was just talking about how I approached sales. They were interested in it and needed some help with working through some of those things on their own platform and their own product. And so that conversation, that work with them, really inspired me to think, hey, some of the stuff that I know about sales is valuable and it helps people. I just assume everybody knows this and does it because it's just been something that's been a part of my life. But this is a testimonial I've gotten from one of those clients. Just call it one of the things. Deep down, I knew all the techniques, but there's a difference between thinking of doing sales and how you actually perform the act of selling. And so what I've really enjoyed working with them and others that I've been able to work with now, I've had some initial consultations with freelance artists, executive directors for nonprofits, people that run antique shops, and people that are in IT. It's fun for me to be able to do some of that. And so, I woke up a few weeks ago and said, I really like this. I was inspired by some of the work that I've done with these clients. And so I want to try to do more of it. I want to try to help people improve their messages, improve their processes, and to be more comfortable with sales. Because once you dispel those myths, you can start having some success, and it just becomes a lot more fun and something you look forward to. So there's a couple different ways that I've worked with people here in the past that I'd like to consider working with you on. Number one, are your sales calls effective? And so this is more of a one-time package where we could sit down over a period of time and just get to know each other and look at who is your customer, why do they buy from you? Those are two questions that people will have a general idea of, but do you have a sharp, clear story around who your customer is and why do they buy from you? We can research prospects together and build value statements. So again, when you're making those calls, when you're making those introductions, having a crisp, concise, clear message that you're communicating with them that they can understand and relate to. I'll sit down with you and listen to real phone calls with you and provide feedback. I know that's been very valuable for other people that I've worked with just to get that perspective. And so if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, just text I'm in to the number that's there. It's 701-446-8278. And then just beyond that, really, I'd like to tailor whatever it is that you need. I've worked with people who've helped review brand materials, help prepare for sales calls, maximize prep for trade shows and knowing why you buy. And there's not a cookie cutter approach to that. Each person's in a different spot. There's things that they're really confident about and other things that they might have questions on. And the best way to figure that out is to do a 30-minute consult. I'll do that for free, just to kind of hear where you're at, get to know you a little bit and see if it's a good fit and see if there are some ways to work together. But I've just noticed that when we're really close to our own material, we don't really see maybe how other people see it, right? And so that's something that I can provide you, is that outside perspective of, okay, what are you trying to communicate here? How effectively are you doing that? What are some ways you could maybe do that differently, and working with you collaboratively on that. And again, you can text I'm in to 701-446-8278. I'd love to set up some time with you on that. And so finally, I just want to thank you for your time. Your time is very valuable, and you chose to spend it here with me today. I would love it if you would fill out the survey on this. And again, you'll get a copy of this presentation in an email afterwards as a follow-up. But just click on that link and fill it out. It's 8 questions. You'll have a chance to win a $15 Amazon gift card. If you're interested in learning more about some of the consulting or some of the work, just go ahead and text I'm in to that number. In the near future, you'll also have a posted video, and just as a thank you, I'm putting together an article called Sales Tools You Can't Live Without. So there's, as I've done sales over the past 10, 15 years, there's just different things that I gravitate to. And yeah, I will, Nathan said I can't get the link to work for the survey. I'll check, maybe a character is missing on it. But I'll be emailing that out for the survey. And I'm going to put together a thing, Sales Tools You Can't Live Without. There's just different books, different podcasts, different apps, and things that I consistently go back to on a regular basis that have been really helpful for me. And they're different things that you can go to and just give you maybe a different perspective on sales, or how to approach different things that have shaped what brought me here today. So again, I sincerely appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention, and I would really love to work with each of you in the future if there is a good fit. So thank you very much. With that, I'll pause. Are there any questions or anything else that we didn't cover in the presentation that you would like to ask right now? I know people were pretty good about talking in there, but I'm happy to answer questions right now that people might have. Nick asked, would you send out bulk emails to prospects? Again, I think that has a place in what you're doing. It's generally not, and it kind of depends too on what your business is, and there's certain things that are highly transactional, maybe a lower price point of entry, and you're trying to hit a wider net, versus things that are maybe a higher dollar value or a bigger commitment. So if I'm selling an ERP system or a $100,000 development contract, I'm not sending out blanket emails to prospects. Now, if I'm selling maybe a $15 subscription to Calendly, yeah, there I might send out blanket emails, because it's a higher higher pool of people at a lower cost of entry. But even with that, I'd play around with different messaging to different people and groups and see what's more effective before you send out a large email or a large campaign. You want to make sure it works before you send it out. And there's so many tools that you can send out a lot of communication really quickly and really easily, which is good. But if you're not sending out the right information in the right way, you might as well not have sent it. It can actually do more harm than good. A good question. So with that, I'll let you go. I've got some information on how you can connect with me on Twitter or phone, email, LinkedIn. Feel free to follow up and just shoot me an email or give me a call or reach out, and be more than happy to talk with you in the future. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for coming.